What up, what up, what up? Welcome into another edition of Green with Envy. As always, it's your boy Will Weir checking in. How you doing? How you living? Joining me as he does each and every time in that comfy bathrobe, my best friend, co-host, and the coach of our podcast, the one and only Greg Maneikis. Let's have some fun, man. How you doing tonight?
I'm feeling great. That was a heck of a team win by the Celtics. And then we got NBA trade deadline in this pod too. This is probably going to be one of our most fun podcasts of the entire season.
When I think of what I want the feeling to be when we come into doing a podcast, this is kind of a night that I think about. There's a lot happening. There's a lot of moving parts. The Celtics just had what I think might be their best win of the year. The vibes are feeling real. Like this is the moment that we kind of podcast for, right? Like there's some nights where, this is obviously a project for Greg and I that we somehow, some way, we want this to ultimately be. This would be what we'd love to do day in, day out, go even more in depth and be paid to do it. That's truly the ultimate goal. And just it's a fun time hanging out doing this. But, a night like this is what I just want to capture it, put it in a bottle and be like, the nights that we feel like we have to drag ourselves to do it, this is why we do it.
Yeah. I mean, it's like when you are in a shooting slump and you finally get out of that shooting slump and you're like, oh, basketball is fun again because I can shoot, very much like the Boston Celtics tonight, who were just draining threes all night. Everybody was shooting that thing. Shotgun Sam was back. It was just a lot of fun watching that team. First game that one of the Jays did not lead the team in scoring all season.
What a fun time. And with that, let's get into it. So we're going to do a morning box score, hit a review of the Celtics-Sixers game, and then we're going to hit all the trade deadlines. If you're listening to this the morning of release, it is trade deadline day. So happy trade deadline day. Very, very exciting day. If you're looking for some live coverage, our homies over at First to the Floor are going to have you covered. I believe they're going to go live today about an hour or so before the trade deadline on their YouTube page. So stay tuned. We'll tweet it out from our Twitter account. I might even try to hop on there, maybe sneak my way in if I got some time in between a couple of meetings. Deadline day is going to be fun, so make sure that y'all tune into that. We'll get you set up with some of the action that's happened already tonight. It may even be happening as we're podcasting right now. We'll hit that in the second half, but for right now, let's do what we always do, Greg, and let's cue up that morning box score. Boston Celtics take down the Philadelphia 76ers 106-99 without three starters going into the game. No Marcus Smart, no Rob Williams, no Al Horford, and eventually another scratch from Jaylen Brown in the second half of the game. We'll get to that in just a minute. For the Sixers, Joel Embiid, 28 points and 7 rebounds. James Harden, 26 points and 11 assists. Tyrese Maxey and Tobias Harris combined to go 5 for 24 from the field. 0 for 7 from 3 for just 10 points. 76ers at full strength. Pretty rough night that we'll talk about here in just a moment. Over on the flip side, let's go to the Celtics. As I mentioned, they were without 3.5 starters for the entirety of this game. 6 guys in double digits. Jason Tatum, only 12 points, but 8 rebounds and 9 assists. Grant Williams, 15 points, 8 rebounds, 5 assists. Derek White, 19 points, 6 rebounds, 3 assists, 2 blocks. Malcolm Brogdon, my personal 6th man of the year, 19 points. Sam Hauser and Blake Griffin, the always reliable Blake Griffin from downtown, 9 of 12 from the 3-point line. Together, they combined for a total of 29 points. There's so many different places that we can go with this game, Greg, but I'm going to make us actually start in one specific area.
I need that. So thank you.
This is a really, really rough day for the let's upgrade those Grant Williams minutes crowd. Really rough day. My guy Grant was fantastic tonight. And I think tonight, despite some of the struggles that have been brought up about trying to quote unquote upgrade whatever that may be, or how, people on Twitter have imagined that potentially playing out. Like he's had a little bit of a rough stretch, but we've saw what happened in the playoffs last year. We've seen tonight why he is so important to this team and the playoff run that they're trying to make this year. Let's start with Grant Williams. Take it where you want, my guy.
I think that's a great place to start. When you see what he's able to do, I mean, he's able to guard a Joel Embiid and do a decent job, right? I mean, he did as good of a job tonight as you see out of an Al Horford, as you see out of a Robert Williams, as you see out of anybody around the league that can give Embiid some problems. A Jared Allen, he always gives Embiid some problems. Grant just does it in a different way because he's so stout at 6'6", 6'7". He's able to get up underneath Embiid. He's just like a really good positional defender. And then when you add the offensive growth that we continue to see from Grant, what I loved from him tonight is that he was very decisive on the catch. He's been, getting shot fake happy this season for the most part tonight. I thought he made good reads. He let that thing fly when it was open. He had a couple nice skip passes across the court. Van Gundy, if you watch the ESPN broadcast, was just absolutely gushing about how much improvement Grant Williams has made this season. And I'm just so happy to see him have this game. If it's his last game in Boston, it was a heck of a game. And he's making it really hard on the front office to justify trading him. And it's going to be really hard to justify not giving him at least $15 million in the offseason.
Yeah, I think there's no chance after this game you can trade him. And to be clear, I feel like the Celtics, at least from the reporting that we're seeing, would have really had to been blown away with somebody or with a particular offer that was, well, this is basically the same, but there's also benefits long term, or there's added draft compensation or something. And I just don't think you're going to find that. So of course it's a gamble. If Grant plays his butt off and plays his way up to a contract you don't feel comfortable paying, that might happen. But in a game like this, and you talked about the way that he, matched up with Joel Embiid and did a damn good job of it. Typically he's also has reinforcements in Al Horford and Rob Williams with him. They weren't there tonight. So this is usually the third option of really kind of the second option Joel Embiid would see but behind Horford. But you're going to have all of those guys, to give Joel Embiid different looks. And even Luke Cornett held up, decently, for, try and talk about upgrading different areas. And, so I just don't see a way that you can justify moving a guy like Grant Williams, who just plays 40 minutes tonight, knocked down 4 of those threes. Like you said, he was decisive. He had 8 rebounds, had 5 assists to go along with that quick decision making. And when you look at who the Celtics are going to have to go through to get back to the finals, you're going to see Joel Embiid. You're going to see Giannis in the Bucks. You're going to see Kevin Durant in the Nets. I mean, you even mentioned when you play the Cavs, you're going to see Jared Allen and Evan Mobley. Like, you're going to need multiple bigs, and Grant does it in a very different way than your 2 starters do. And so this gets back to, some of those guys could be labeled that unicorn. Grant's part of the stable. Grant's a mainstay in the stable that you have to match up with those guys. And should the Celtics, find themselves in the finals, who's number 1 in the West right now? The Joker, right? So if you come up with the Joker, you need Batman. So I just don't see a way that after tonight you can walk away saying, yeah, I think it still makes sense to trade Grant Williams. And I think this reinforces my belief that there's no way he's not in Celtic green come Friday night against Charlotte.
No, I agree completely. Some names have been floated out there. A guy on Charlotte, PJ Washington. I forget who was. I don't know if that was happening on the broadcast or if that was happening in the
pregame. Washburn and KOC were on the NBC Sports talking about that a little bit.
That's right. That's where I heard it. And I just think with Grant, the point you just made about the guys that you have to go through in the Eastern Conference, maybe it won't matter with the Nets if Kevin Durant gets moved and he gets moved to the Western Conference. Maybe that's a possibility. But I think Grant is just the type of defender that you need against these big guys like Joel Embiid, Kevin Durant, Giannis Antetokounmpo. He's made to guard these guys in playoff scenarios. And we saw what he can do in the playoffs as well last season. Obviously he wasn't a superstar throughout the playoffs. That's not what Grant Williams is, but he was a star in his role throughout the playoffs. And I think this season, the growth that he's continued to show, there's no way that the Celtics can trade him after a performance like this against Embiid, because Embiid's one of those guys where in the past Grant hasn't done a great job against, but the fact that he was able to do what he did tonight against Embiid, I think speaks volumes to not only this season, but moving forward as you're looking forward to an eventual Al Horford replacement.
Yeah. And so, like I said, this is a great Grant Williams game, but there's a lot of unsung heroes from tonight's win, which once again, I'm going to reiterate, I think this is the best team win of the season, going up against a Philadelphia 76ers team that was crawling right back up into contention for, coming for that number 1 seed. They're 22-6 in their last 28 games at full strength. Like, I can't reiterate enough that the Celtics were down 3 starters. They lose Jaylen Brown at the end of the first half, who takes a friendly fire elbow from Jason Tatum. We'll see if we get an update on that while we're recording that tonight, but he doesn't come back for the second half. So you're down 3.5 starters, including your all-star, one of your 2 all-stars in Jaylen Brown, and the 76ers, who are on fire with best record over the last 25 plus games, and you take them down full strength. Just an unbelievable win. I think the next guy I want to go to here is Derek White. Derek White, who has been just phenomenal. He's been very steady. Also, I believe he's played in every game this season for the Celtics. I think the only member of the team that might still apply for at this point. Plays almost 40 minutes tonight. Goes 8 of 13. Knocked down the shots. 3 of 6. Anytime you're getting Derek White to knock down shots, that's such an added bonus. And tonight was obviously very needed because Tatum was not able to get that shot going, and Jaylen Brown didn't play in the second half. So having a guy like Derek White who can step up and get you 19 points, but then also has 6 rebounds, 3 assists. Once again, you talk about being decisive, being quick with the ball, making the right plays. And, my favorite play of the game, maybe of the year, Derek White chase down block into a Sam Hauser, shotgun Sam, corner Trey. This is a game just to remember for all of the contributions everywhere, but Derek White stands out above some of the others.
Yeah, DY, I know you tweeted out that you think he deserves some All-NBA Defensive Player of the Year candidacy this year. And I mean, it's hard to argue with that, especially when he's starting to get the highlight plays this season to go along with just solid defense overall, always being in the right position. The fact that he fights over screens, he contests late, and then he has these plays where he right now is the best guard shot blocker in the league, like without a doubt. He's a rim protector at 6'4". So Derek White, one of the things I wrote recently for Celtics blog was the idea that in Marcus Smart's absence, it's going to be really, really important for Brogdon and White to start developing confidence and developing chemistry with the rest of the guys on the roster, especially Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, because they haven't played with these guys for that long. They're still trying to find their own way to make their mark on each game. For Derek White, he's being asked to probably do a little bit less than he's capable of. Same with Malcolm Brogdon coming off the bench. So with D White, man, like I know we talked about on the last pod, the idea of like, oh, if a Jeremy Grant trade came up and it was Grant Williams and D White for Jeremy Grant, like that's still an interesting trade. It's probably never going to happen. That was just us kind of just, shooting the shit there. But with, after tonight's game, you're like, man, if Derek White reaches the potential that he was showing almost nightly in San Antonio, and he reaches that potential for this Boston Celtics team, and we figure out a way, and Joe figures out a way to get the best out of everybody, because that's a whole nother conversation. Can Joe Mazzulla get the best out of Derek White? This team's going to be really tough to beat, and it's just fun talking about the Celtics after a win like this.
And it's the depth, man, and that's the part that makes it tough, right? Because like you said, guys like Derek White, guys like Malcolm Brogdon, and even Grant Williams, and this is why when you see some of the trade rumors, it's Grant wants a starting role potential. I think Keith Smith had that in one of his reports earlier this week, that that could be part of what's leading Grant's camp to maybe look at a trade, that these guys can all do more. So if you're Joe Mazzulla, to the point you're making, how do you get the best out of them in smaller, in smaller instances, right? Because they're only going to have a certain amount of minutes when you add Rob Williams back, when you add Al Horford back, when you add Marcus Smart back, when Jaylen Brown isn't, out for the entire second half. And that's where it can sometimes get a little tricky. But it also, on a night like this, when you're playing the number, I don't know if the number 2 or 3 seed in the East right now in the Philadelphia 76ers at full strength with James Harden, Joel Embiid, Tyrese Maxey, Tobias Harris, the Anthony Melton, the list goes on and on of the good players that they have over there, and they're at full strength. And you can still come out with, weakened depth and feel like, yeah, this game might be a little bit tougher, but we're not out of it. We have enough talent here that we can still go at this. And, the fact that they walk away with a 7-point win and basically led almost wire to wire, minus the, first 6 minutes of this game, which were anchored by, Blake Griffin just going in fuego at the beginning of the game. Before we hopped on, I was saying to you, without Blake hitting those first 3 threes of the game, the score was 18-11 at one point. It would have been 18-2 if Blake didn't knock down those 3 threes. So it absolutely took, a little bit of getting through that first awkward stretch of the game. But the fact that the Celtics have this type of depth, like this, to me, is, even though this isn't going to be the team that you see, obviously, or hopefully we're not seeing this team in big stretches in the playoffs. This is a monumental win. This is a win that tells you, I don't care what the circumstances are when we get to the playoffs. We got a chance. Doesn't matter who's down. Next man up. We're going to have a chance in every single instance in the playoffs. And you can always harken back to this game tonight.
There is one guy that I do want to talk about as we kind of look forward to the trade deadline, a guy that only played 5 minutes in a game where there was so many injuries, so many people out. And that's our guy, Peyton Pritchard, man. He was on the court at the end of the game.
I wanted to ask you about that. That was an interesting little move by crazy Joe Mazzulla.
Well, I liked it because Doc Rivers, has never been averse to going offense, defense. He did that with the Celtics when he was a Celtics coach back in the day. So when Joe sees Doc going offense, defense, he brings in Tyrese Maxey, who was on the bench at that time. He brought him in for offense. Peyton Pritchard, as I've been continuing to say, one of his skill sets that not many people on this roster have is his ability to fight over screens and stay connected to ball handlers. He just doesn't let a lot of space get in between him and the ball handler, especially fighting over screens. So when you bring in a Maxey, it's like, oh, well, I have Luke Cornett on the court. Like Luke Cornett is going to get in a switch, going to get involved in a switch action, and then he's going to get taken to the basket. Maybe there's an and one that happens. Peyton Pritchard coming into the game, you can trust him that he's going to be able to guard in a pinch. But the fact that he only played 5 minutes tonight in a game in which there were so many injuries was pretty telling, because there was one point, I think it was 1 minute left in the first quarter, Pritchard went up to the scorer's table and Joe decided to pull him back. And I was wondering, I was like, is that just because there's a timeout coming? Is that just because Joe didn't like what he saw on the court? Or is it because they didn't want to play Peyton Pritchard in this game because there's the possibility that he could get hurt and he might get moved before the trade deadline? But it was weird to see him go to the scorer's table and get pulled back. And the only reason he played in this game is because Jaylen Brown ended up getting hurt.
Yeah, it's, like you said, it's, you try not to read too much into it, but around the trade deadline, everybody's reading into everything, right? Whether it's a late game scratch or, I know the Kevin Durant potentially being traded coincided with Jaylen Brown sitting out the other night due to just a non-COVID illness. And it was like, you had to reassure everybody, hey, there's no trade happening. This was just circumstance of it. But with Peyton Pritchard, it is interesting. And once again, as we talk about the depth of this, this simulated a real life, break glass in case of emergency scenario in the playoffs. That's what this was tonight. If, if that situation were to occur, and Peyton Pritchard really wasn't used all that much. Other than that late, like I said, I was really fascinated by that move late, especially because, for me, just the biggest thing with that move late, bringing in Pritchard, and it ended up happening, was what are we going to do if Joel Embiid ends up with Peyton Pritchard? And it was late enough in the shot clock, and Peyton, he's tough as all hell, man. He got right up under Embiid. He, didn't, for his credit, did not get pushed around. The Celtics obviously came and then, helped and doubled. But it does make me wonder if this speaks to, hey, here's what we can do, because Peyton Pritchard is a guy that does seem expendable when you look at a night like tonight. And he only registers the under 5 minutes, doesn't take a shot the entire game here, almost a clean stat sheet, minus one rebound. So that will be be interesting to see what happens tomorrow, as he does seem to be the main trade candidate out there. As we said, reports have been out there of teams calling in on Derek White, calling in on Grant Williams, tonight. And then for Derek White all season, it screams why the Celtics are not going to likely move either of them. But any other thoughts that you have on the game tonight that you want to hit, Greg, before we take a break here?
I do think we need to talk about Luke.
Yeah, let's do it.
I thought Luke was great in this game. If you were watching the ESPN broadcast, for those of you that are listening out there, they were kind of making fun of the Cornette eclipse, the Cornette contest, whatever you want to call it, because of that one play in which he did like the pogo stick,
double,
and then Embiid hit the three and started laughing at him. But Cornette got his revenge. He blocked Embiid at the rim at the end of the half, which was a heck of a block. One thing I really like about Luke, and I'm noticing out of him, is he's become a lot more aggressive on the offensive end, not necessarily when he gets the ball in like a get situation, give and go type of situation, but when he's off ball and he's cutting those 45-degree cuts, those baseline cuts. He's cutting with a purpose. He's cutting hard. He's making timely cuts, and he has great hands. He had one play today where I think Tatum tried to find him for, a cut, and then he fumbled the ball away. And, I think it was maybe in the first half that happened. But for the most part, Kornet's really sure-handed around the rim. He had that one highlight dunk. Luke's actually surprisingly nimble on those like reverse alley-oop catches.
And
He's
Tatum
really
loves throwing that. Tatum's getting really comfortable throwing that to Luke Tatum just in general throwing alley-oops to Rob and Luke has become kind of his new favorite thing as far as the ways in which he's getting assists. It's something that you can start to look for. He does it a couple times a game, regardless which one of them is out there.
Yeah, and they're just such big targets. Luke obviously can't get up like Rob can get up,
For
as
sure.
quick as Rob can get up, but he's so big that he's still a lob threat around the rim, and he looks more athletic. Like, he looks like his body. I don't know if it's the haircut. He did just get a haircut
Yeah.
recently, but doesn't he look faster? He looks like stronger, more athletic. He's really getting up and down the court. It speaks volumes to the coaching staff, the athletic staff, because they are making Luke Kornet and obviously to him, he's becoming a very useful NBA player. And when you ask, like, do I want to trade Peyton Pritchard for further big man depth? I'm like, I think I'd rather continue to have the depth at the guard position if Luke can continue to improve the way he's doing, and if we don't trade Grant Williams, because Grant can obviously guard up when needed.
Yeah, and I think with Luke and even some of the play of Blake today, which obviously, the 5 threes, I think was a bit fluky, but at the same time, it's still in the bag that can happen, in a game. And once again, I thought Blake gave a solid 18 minutes just to get out there and be another solid body, another stout body, like you talked about with Grant Williams. And so when you look at Blake and Luke in the way that they perform tonight, Grant elevates in that big man rotation. It leaves me feeling like I don't feel like that's the area that if I'm going to trade Peyton Pritchard, or if I'm going to combo Peyton Pritchard with Danilo Gallinari to go get something, I don't see a Jakob Poeltl being the answer. I don't see, I saw a Mo Bamba rumor out there, which certainly doesn't make sense. Mo Bamba's barely playing on the Magic as it is. So I don't see how that correlates at all, unless it's a buyout situation. But, whichever big that you're looking at, I just don't see that making sense. I'm not saying on the buyout you can't look, but to actually trade, value in that. And so I think for me, that just leaves it to, for me, if Peyton Pritchard is going to get moved, I really think it would still be on the wing, despite our guy, Shotgun Sam, two-game revelation. He's back. He's back, baby. These last 2 games, he's been really, really good at, he's been looking like early season Sam. And you could even see it tonight in his release. I don't know if you felt this, but in his release, he felt like he had like the Larry Bird walk away in the 3-point contest. Like, when he lets it go now, it feels like, yeah, that's not even touching rim. That is, it's back to that early season feel of, I think it's impossible for him to miss. I don't even think it's possible when it leaves its hand.
But bro, that's the thing with shooters. Like, even the best shooters in the world go through significant slumps. And when your really only offensive role is to shoot, it's kind of hard when you're in a slump for people to notice that you're, like, what value you're adding to the court. Because Sam still is a pretty good defender, man. He moves his feet really well. He's 6'8". He can test shots high. Like, obviously, you don't want Sam getting switched out onto like one of the best guards in the league, but you can say that for most guys that are going to be in his role, right? Sam Hauser's a decent defender. I think he's still underrated as a defender. And if he's able, and he's a good rebounder too. I think he has a good nose for the ball, and he gets to loose balls really well as well. So I think, with Sam finding the stroke tonight in the playoffs, when you need just like this other variable that you can throw out there and you're not worried, like a Bielitsa, right? Last year in the finals for the Warriors, like somebody like that you can just throw out there and know they might be able to guard somebody that, you don't expect them to guard. Like Bielitsa was able to guard Tatum from time to time in the finals last year. And Hauser, I think, can be that type of guy for the Celtics. Really happy to see him do well. But one other thing I wanted to add before we go to break here, Will, I was thinking earlier, when we're talking about the trade deadline and Danilo, I'm like Perk right now. Danilo got
bro, I was losing it. If you guys have not seen it, go find the clip tonight. Perk was trying to do an in-game studio highlight on the Houston Rockets. I can't remember who they're against, the Sacramento Kings, and couldn't say Alperen Şengün and then quit on the highlight. Just
It was
didn't talk.
amazing.
Didn't talk for about 10 seconds. It's
And you couldn't even see him on the screen. So he was just like, I wonder if everybody else in the studio was laughing. But with Gallinari, I was thinking earlier, I was like, man, wouldn't it be just really cool if Gallinari was able to come back in the playoffs? Like, it's very unlikely, but he's a good player, man. Gallinari is a good player. And if he can be like AB Elitsa type in the playoffs for us this year, that would be just such a fun story because he's working his butt off to get back on the floor.
I mean, that there's been reports of it being an outside possibility. I don't think anyone thinks it's likely, but the work that he's been putting in, I know Bobby Manning, I think, was reporting on this earlier today or earlier this week that, it's something that he's striving for. It's something that he's using internally as motivation, that there is that outside chance. By the way, he was looking dapper. So you see that 3-piece suit my guy was rocking?
Finally,
Italian
bro.
stallion.
He's kind of not been bringing the swag on the
I don't know. I
sidelines.
liked when we went to San Antonio and he dressed up as a cowboy. He looked like Woody from Toy Story. I thought it was kind of cool.
Yeah, I mean, he's like a handsome 6'10" Italian man, so he can pull it off. But like, if you or I tried to wear that, we'd look ridiculous.
We'd look ridiculous. Yeah, he can pull off a lot of looks that you and I can't pull off. He does have that benefit. But yeah, that would be a nice addition for the Celtics. And I think that's partially why they're not necessarily jumping at the bit to say, hey, let's just go throw this in, because they have him for next year. I mean, he's on a player option for next year, which he's going to pick up. And so, that could be almost your free agent move, even especially, if you're worried that Grant's going to say, give me 20 mil. Well, maybe we just slide in Gallo to that spot for a year and figure it out. So, yeah, that's a great call out on Gallo. That's something that I think we'll definitely be monitoring as we go into the end of the season. And by tomorrow, we'll kind of know, besides the buyout candidates, we'll know where this team sits. So with that, we're going to take a quick break. A couple deals have already gone down. We talked about Kyrie Irving to the Mavs last episode. A couple more deals have gone down tonight. We're going to review those and get y'all set up for the rest of this trade deadline day. All right, Greg. So it's trade deadline day. If you're listening to this on the day of release, it's trade deadline day. Very exciting. Get the Twitter out. Start scrolling. Start refreshing. Hopefully it doesn't go down again. Did you see the Twitter went down earlier today?
I saw people tweeting about it and how it went down. Then I was like, wait a minute. How are people tweeting about it?
Yeah, it was a little confusing. It was definitely malfunctioning. So whatever Elon was doing to it, it was certainly malfunctioning. It was telling at one point I tried to send something out from our show account, and it said, you've already hit your daily limits for tweets. I don't think I tweeted anything today. I think I tweeted out the YouTube link to the show maybe, but that was about it. So there was definitely a little bit of funny business going on for sure. So hopefully Elon has that cleaned up by today. But during the Celtics game, a couple big trades went down here, Greg. So, like I said, we know about the Kyrie trade to the Mavs. He's actually playing his first game with the Mavs right now as we're talking. But the first trade that went down is the one that we've been hearing about for so long, about the Lakers making a move with those picks and with Russell Westbrook. And so that was the first one that went down that was being talked about throughout the day, was finalized during the game today. So in that, D'Angelo Russell is going to be heading to the Los Angeles Lakers, along with Jared Vanderbilt and Malik Beasley. And then Russell Westbrook is going to be going to the Utah Jazz, along with a 2027 top 4 protected first round pick, and then Mike Conley plus a few others going over to the Timberwolves. So this is a domino that I think will start to have a little bit of ripple effects as everyone was kind of looking at what's going to happen to those Lakers picks. Let's just talk about this trade, in itself. Likely Russell Westbrook is going to get bought out. That's, slightly interesting to see where he goes. Right now, he's still the betting favorite for Sixth Man of the Year, which I think is ridiculous. I'm going to keep mentioning, I think it's so ridiculous that the guy who's going to be traded and bought out has been the, betting favorite for Sixth Man of the Year. But that's neither here nor there. But what are your thoughts on this trade that was, like I said, finalized right around tip-off of the Celtics game tonight?
I don't know how the Lakers pulled this off, man. Like, they gave out one first round pick that's protected 1 to 4, right? And if they don't get it in that year in 2027, it doesn't convey, right? So
it becomes seconds. I saw it immediately becomes seconds.
Yeah. So it doesn't become another first round pick.
Exactly.
So the fact that they might be that bad in 2027, you never know. And they might be able to hold on to that pick is crazy, because they ended up getting 3 guys that are immediately going to be in their rotation. you could make an argument that all three of them could be slid into their starting lineup right now. Like that's
100%. Like
that's how much of an upgrade this
I
is.
want to talk about LeBron and him breaking the record here in a little bit, but like if you watch that game last night, oh my God, it's so evident. Just getting 3 rotation players
Yeah.
is such a massive upgrade. And I'm not the biggest D'Angelo Russell guy, but going from Russell Westbrook to D'Angelo Russell is definitively an upgrade in 2023.
Yeah, I mean, just in terms of fit, I think Russell Westbrook still has some moments really like last night. I think Russ was great in the fourth quarter. He was the only guy like really still trying on the Lakers in the fourth quarter. Maybe he was just understanding this was his last game and he was going to try and leave on a high note and, make it hard for the Lakers to trade him. We'll talk about that game in a little bit here. Let's stay on the trade, Greg. I know my brain's just like, I want to talk about that. I want to talk about how crazy that game was. But this trade, man, I think with D'Angelo Russell, the fact that he's shooting the ball at 50, 40, 90 splits this year, Malik Beasley also can shoot the rock. And then Jared Vanderbilt is just a good defender, also a good rebounder who, after this trade, how much does Rui Hachimura even play? You know what I mean? Because I think Vanderbilt is probably a better version of what the Lakers need from that role between Rui and him. Like Vanderbilt is a better rebounder.
I mean, I think the point of it is it puts Rui to where he should be. Rui should be your 7th, 8th guy. You know what I mean? Like Rui's like an NBA player, but he was going to be in the starting 5 for this team playing big minutes. And so now you're just expanding on your roster of NBA level talent that actually fits, because the Lakers have a couple guys that are NBA talents, but they just don't fit in any shape or form. And now you've added, and I think Vanderbilt, for me, the biggest thing is he provides support to Anthony Davis, right? Like, I don't know what the hell was going on with Anthony Davis last night. Once again, we'll talk about that game in just a little bit. Very, very weird. But, Anthony Davis is long, not, famously not wanting to play the 5. Right. So now you have another guy that's like, hey, I'll get dirty. I'll, throw some bows down here. I can kind of mix it up. And then Russell and Malik Beasley are going to be guys that fit playing off of LeBron very well. So I think the Lakers didn't, they waited. And I think this deal is way better than them putting 2 picks in and getting Kyrie Irving. Right. Like, I mean, I think they needed more than just, they needed more than just Kyrie Irving. Like Kyrie Irving, like, star wise for being LA, I get it. Shiny, bright lights, all that. But that's actually a much more substantial package. And now, if they really find something else, they got one more pick that they can use to go get Bogdanovich, maybe, or go get one of these other guys that's out there. But that actually leads into kind of the second part of tonight. One of the guys that's no longer out there is Josh Hart. Josh Hart is going to go from the Blazers to the Knicks. I think right now we know Cam Reddish is involved. I think there's some conflicting reports at the time of recording this, whether or not there's going to be, whether it's Isaiah Hartenstein or maybe Svi Mikhailuk is also involved. But the main deal here is going to be Hart for Reddish, which, we've talked about for the Celtics. Number one, I mentioned Josh Hart in our, guys we'd love to see in green at some point. I think this is an amazing deal for the Knicks. I really like Josh Hart. I still don't know if I don't think it propels the Knicks into a different level of where they're at, but I think it makes them even tougher. If we're going back to ranking teams that I don't want to play, I think Josh Hart certainly increases, that portion of the Knicks. That can they spring an upset? Are they going to go all the way to the conference finals or the finals? Probably not, but are they going to make it to the second round? Josh Hart certainly helps that case if you get, the right breaks. And, and then it also takes Cam Reddish off the board, which I know for you, Cam Reddish was the buy low guy. That's the, hey, here's 2 seconds. Let's put Cam Reddish into that. We have Sam Hauser, but if Sam Hauser's not clicking, we also have Cam Reddish to bring in for minutes. So I know you're big on the potential of Cam Reddish. So tell me a little bit about what you were thinking having this name off the board going into today.
Well, I think the Hart one is even more interesting than the Reddish one. Reddish was just like, I want to see him in a situation in which he's surrounded by other guys that are kind of his age that might motivate him, that are better than him, right? Like I bet Cam Reddish looks at RJ Barrett and is like, bro, I'm better than you, right? He just kind of has that, they went to the college together, so on and so forth. But if he was on the team with the Celtics, it would just be fun to see what he might turn into if he had Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown there. But Josh Hart, when you see what they gave up for him, a lottery protected 2023 first round pick that turns into 4 future second round picks, if not conveyed this year, plus Cam Reddish, right? So
first of all, I love the random stipulations that go into NBA deals. Like you get this 1 pick, but that turns into 4 future second-round picks, and then in other deals, like 2 second-round picks got us Evan Fournier the other year. I don't know. It's just funny the way that these things work out in NBA language.
No, for sure. And I just think like would to make the contracts work, obviously you'd need to include probably a Gallinari, but a Peyton Pritchard Gallinari package with a pick, could that have gotten it done? Because Josh Hart would have looked great in green, as you
Yeah.
had said. And like, the issue that I had when we were talking about trading Pritchard earlier is like, if we trade Pritchard for just some big man, I don't know that that necessarily upgrades our team like a Mo Bamba. But if we trade him for a Josh Hart, who I think is definitely a playoff player, right? He can definitely play on any team in the NBA. Josh Hart would be in their playoff rotation just because of his grit, his defense, and his ability to just kind of have a nose for the ball, right? So when you see the Knicks are getting Josh Hart, I am a little bit more concerned about the Knicks, more disappointed that the Celtics weren't able to swing a deal like that, because that would have been fun to see him in green.
It's a little bit like the Jared Allen situation, right? Like, you see what they go for, and it's like, why weren't we necessarily sniffing around that? Because that's the upgrade that, that makes sense. That's the upgrade where it's like, oh, if we're gonna put in a Gallinari Pritchard plus, a Justin Jackson or whatever it is to get to that, that final salary amount, that's where it makes sense. That's where it would have been like, hey, this is a move that is not just a luxury. This is a guy that, and especially for a guy like Josh Hart, because he is that dynamic wing for the way the Celtics play. Like, because losing Peyton Pritchard, for example, like the biggest concern is that Smart gets hurt a lot. Brogdon has an injury history. And so if you have 2 out of the 3 main guards, including Derek White in that mix, but now you have Josh Hart, so you don't have to worry about, necessarily playing a wing up if somebody else goes down. It still continues to give you versatility across your all your 3 combo guards that you have along with the wing. So Hart still would have given you that. So I do think that's that's interesting, that's a really good move for the Knicks. I think it's a phenomenal move.
Perfect Tibbs
for
guy.
the Knicks. Yeah, he's such a Tibbs guy. And I think he's going to be a restricted free agent in the offseason. So maybe that plays a little bit of a role into the Celtics not sniffing around quite as much. But then again, like I said, we're in the end game. The Celtics are looking for a championship this year. They already have a lot of their players secure. So I think that would have been a pretty interesting move. But, this is the first couple of moves. We have Kyrie. We have the Lakers 3-way deal. Now we have the Josh Hart deal. That's, at least as of right now, it's 10:03 here Central Time as we're recording. Those are the most up-to-date moves that we've seen. But do you think right now this is setting up for more teams to start making, is there going to be a lot of moves you feel like tomorrow, or do you think it's going to slow down? Or
yeah, tomorrow's going to be wild. Like, I know you reached out to me and you were like, hey, can we do a live stream? I have to work, unfortunately. I thought about calling out of work, but I got some deals in the pipeline that I need to close.
I feel you.
So, I hope you hop on the stream with First to the Floor, because I do think there's going to be some wildness that happens tomorrow at the trade deadline. All those guys in Toronto that need to be traded, the Bulls that need to make some trades. There are the different teams around the league that still need to move pieces that are significant pieces. And a lot of teams right now that are looking around the league that are like, I think we could win.
Yeah.
If we had the right guy, we can win the title this year. So I'm pumped for the trade deadline tomorrow. I'm really upset we won't be able to go live, which is why we're going live right now.
Absolutely. But it's going to be a fun day. I'm actually watching a video right now on Twitter. Jalen Brunson just found out that Josh Hart is his teammate again. They go back to their days at Villanova winning championships. Dope. So that's another just like really great connection. Once again, if you're the Knicks, you're just building equity with your star players right there. So I think once again, phenomenal move. The day is going to be exciting. So if you are listening to this the day of release, make sure you check out First to the Floor. Make sure you check out @GreenNVPod on Twitter, Instagram. We're going to retweet everything we can. We're going to keep y'all up to date. We're going to be in there engaging and interacting. Should be a fun day. And, we'll see what's left for the Celtics. We'll see what the buyout market starts to look like. And then we'll be back at it on Sunday after the Celtics take on the Grizzlies. Come right back here and join us. We'll talk about everything that's happened. We'll recap that game and maybe get, be a little preview for you guys before the Super Bowl. So come check out some basketball before the Super Bowl on Sunday with your boys. We'll talk about everything that's happened. But for now, we talked about the Lakers and their 3-way trade, and we hinted at the game last night. And of course, the festivities of LeBron James becoming the all-time scoring leader in the NBA, passing Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. Greg, it was a really interesting scene just throughout this entire game. It had a little bit of the feel of almost like the Kobe 60 game, where everyone just knew it was coming, especially early on. LeBron made it pretty clear that, yeah, I'm going for the record this game. I'm not letting this linger anymore. I'm going for it. And 36 points, that's a lot of points. It's not nothing. It wasn't necessarily a guarantee he was going to get it, but he got it in 3 quarters. I have a lot of thoughts just on, just some of the different little nuances of it, but I want to get your take on last night first.
I mean, it's a heck of an accomplishment. We were just at the Lakers Celtics game recently, and the biggest takeaway I think the two of us had was that LeBron was the best player on the court in that game. Jalen obviously took over down the stretch. Tatum had his moments, but start to finish in the building, it was just like, there's nothing we can do with this man. And then he got fouled and that whole tantrum happened, which is just hilarious. But the fact that he's able to still do this at this age, Kareem's reactions throughout the game were so funny too, man.
Dude, so I didn't realize, and it was the tension. You could feel the tension when they were doing the whole ceremony in the middle of the game. I didn't realize that they don't have beef, but they don't have a great relationship, or
they
not
don't
much of a relationship. Yeah, I didn't realize that until I had to do a little bit of digging.
Yeah, for sure. But I mean, the fact that LeBron was able to do this and he had that sense for the moment. Here's the winning bucket. If you're watching live on YouTube, not the winning bucket, but the record breaking bucket.
For LeBron last night, it was the winning bucket. LeBron did not give a damn about winning that game last night.
No,
LeBron only cared about getting to that record. That was the part for me that kind of stood out. Was like, man, I want like LeBron of a couple years ago would be like, yo, there's no chance the Oklahoma City Thunder without a center, with all these young bucks, are coming in here and ruining my night and getting a win. He didn't give a crap about a win last night. He's like, I gotta get my 36. My feet hurt. I need to sit down and relax. I'm getting my 36. I'm celebrating, and that's all that matters for me right now.
And I'm kind of okay with that. That might not be the most popular take for Celtics fans to hear that. I'm okay with LeBron just being LeBron in last night's game and doing what he was doing. But I just think so it reminded me of in high school when I was a sophomore, we had a kid named Nick Michelle, who was just a really good center. He was dominant. He was 1,000-point scorer. And we were away against a team and he scored his 1,000th point. And they stopped the game in the middle of the game. There was like a big ceremony for him. So this is kind of like a basketball tradition.
Mm-hmm.
This happens in basketball contests. I've never seen it happen with 10 seconds left in a quarter.
That was the funniest part. Like, why couldn't we just finish the quarter? We just finish the quarter? There's 10 seconds left.
Yeah, I thought they should have finished the quarter. I thought that was a little silly, but I'm okay with the ceremony. I'm okay with the pomp. I think that was fine. But it was just funny that they stopped it with 10 seconds left in the third quarter. That was hilarious. But with the Lakers, they needed to win that game, but it was also the last game before the trade deadline. I think a lot of the guys kind of had that feel about it. Westbrook clearly did. Don't know what was up with AD. Maybe Westbrook hurt his feelings in the locker room or something.
He looked butthurt. So did you see the reverse angle of LeBron hitting the shot to break the record, where Anthony Davis is walking? The whole team is basically the team. You might as well let them have their cell phones out, just like the rest of the crowd, just filming. They're almost on the court, ready to go storm and celebrate. And Anthony Davis is kind of casually walking behind, and just sits down. Didn't even really watch that bucket. It was very strange.
LeBron was mic'd up, which is also really cool just to hear him talk with different people throughout the game. But there was one moment where AD was sitting on the bench next to him, and it seemed like he was down about something. And LeBron said, "Hey, I got you, bro.
I love you, man. Want to let you know I love you."
Yeah, so I'm I'm wondering if maybe there was some tragic stuff that happened in Anthony Davis's life yesterday, or maybe it was the anniversary. It was just it was weird to see the energy that he had last night in the game. And then the Lakers needed to win that game, but it really didn't matter. I think they're going to be fine with this trade. Ultimately, with the trade, they're going to be a much better team, a much different team moving forward. And last night was just fun as a basketball fan.
Yeah, I think last night just more spoke to it was a game they needed to win, but like you said, unless they made moves at the trade deadline, it wasn't going to matter anyways. And now they've made their moves, so now things are going to matter a little bit more. And I think Anthony Davis even asked, what has to change? He's like, we got to win. And it's it really is that simple. There's nothing else to it. They just have to win, and now they got these new guys that it's put up or shut up. Either you win and you make the playoffs, or you lose and you don't. And it is what it is. But last night was about celebrating LeBron, who, it's so crazy to think about how much hype he came in with from, age 15, 16 years old. And, I don't even know if this segment's gonna be, some people that listen to this podcast might just tune out because we're kind of going to gush on LeBron here for a
That's
minute.
fine. Tune
And that's
out.
okay. That's okay. But
We're
like,
not LeBron haters on this pod.
not LeBron haters, and I'm not even like a huge I get when people think LeBron's kind of annoying, corny, egotistical. I agree with all those points, but I also very much appreciate the greatness this man has put into the game of basketball over the last 20 years, and the fact that he's done so with more pressure than anyone in the history of any sport, of musician, even like musical like prodigies. Like, people don't come out with the expectations the way LeBron does and then just go, oh, hold on, let me surpass every single one of them that you have. And so I think last night for me, it was just really cool watching the full culmination of a guy that we've seen since high school to where he's at now, breaking a record that a lot of people thought, wasn't going to be broken. It's one of the few records that's left that actually is pretty meaningful. I think with baseball, home run records have started to taper off a bit. That was kind of as like kids growing up, the gold standard of records that really mattered. And like, even if you didn't know what the amount of points that Kareem had, which I didn't know most times, but I knew Kareem was the all-time scoring leader. I knew that average wise, it's Wilt and Michael. Like, those were things that were really important. And now that LeBron has taken that mantle, it was really cool to be able to witness that history. And and the dude give him this. Like I said, I think he can be a little annoying. I think he can be a little egotistical, a little corny sometimes. The man knows the moment. The man knows how to own a moment, and he knew going into it that what he was going to do, and he went out and did it, and it wasn't easy.
Well, I think people need to understand, like, our generation. If you're not, as we're 33, 34 years old right now, and well, we're both 33. I'm not 34 yet. But when we were, 12, 13 years old, LeBron James was on ESPN, Dickie V calling his high school games. I didn't have any hatred towards LeBron James when I was a kid. You know what I mean? I was cheering for him when he made the finals against the Spurs, his first couple of years in the league. Like, I wanted to see this guy be great. He wasn't a rival of the Boston Celtics yet. Eventually he became a rival, and eventually I started to get annoyed with LeBron, with a lot of the stuff that he was doing. But in general, I mean, I still remember how I felt watching this kid that I looked up to, because I was a basketball player, and I was like, oh, LeBron James is so cool. When I was 12 years old, I didn't have his poster on my wall,
Mm-hmm.
but I was very much in tune with what LeBron James was doing, who he was. That was really before social media popped off. So you were watching on ESPN, there's this romantic nostalgia that goes along with those early memories of who LeBron is. And, who he became is even crazier to think that he is now the NBA's leading scorer.
Yeah. I mean, shout out to LeBron, man. Like I said, it's one of those things where I'm going to remember watching that and remember all the happenstance around it from all the celebrities that were there. The weird Drake tribute joke video that they played while the game was actually
That's
going
his boy,
on.
though.
I know, it was just like, what the hell is this? That was like an SNL sketch, but they played it while the game was happening in the fourth quarter. I don't know. It was all very strange. But at the same time, I think it was a really cool accomplishment, despite the fact that the Lakers lost. I think it made sense to go ahead, break up the game for a little bit, celebrate that. It deserves to be celebrated. The Lakers will move on. We'll talk about the Lakers another day. But yeah, really cool to be able to witness history and witness a guy that we've seen from the beginning all the way to, I can't even call it the end. He's still averaging 28, 29 points a game.
Yeah.
So
great.
I don't know when the end's going to be. I don't know if he's going to be with the Lakers the rest of his career. But really cool to watch. I thought it was an extremely fun moment, and one of those moments where kind of everyone's watching together on Twitter. And that's one of the good moments of Twitter, right? When everyone's watching the same moment and you feel like you're sharing this with so many people around the world. And so I thought that was super cool. Any other final thoughts on this before we wrap this one up?
No thoughts on this, but just a quick Super Bowl prediction. You got one?
Well, you know what? We're gonna be on here. Well, the game will already have taken place. I'm trying to think of, is it better to get my prediction now, or is it better to do it on the live stream? Better to get my prediction now. Okay. All right, let's do it now. You've convinced me with so many various reasons as to why now is the right time to do it. But I'm gonna go with, I haven't really thought about this too much. You know what? I'm gonna go with the Chiefs.
Yeah,
I'm
me
gonna go
too.
with the Chiefs 27-21. I'm just not betting against Pat Mahomes. I might be
Same.
wrong, but I just feel like, in any football game from now until basically he retires, if I have the option of Pat Mahomes, I'm going to choose Pat Mahomes.
I agree. I'm going with the Chiefs. Now that the Patriots are what the Patriots are becoming, I just want to we already had all that greatness with Brady. Shout out to Brady, by the way, who just retired. We haven't talked
Maybe.
about that. Yeah, I think he's done.
I don't
But
know, man. He's crazy. We'll see.
but I just think I want to root for greatness. I think Mahomes, I don't know that he'll ever be the greatest of all time like Tom Brady is, but I want to see him be great. I want to see him win multiple Super Bowls. I don't think he's going to get to 7, but I want to see him get multiple Super Bowls and at least continue the debate. Who's the greatest quarterback of all
I mean,
time? It's fun for the next
this is
generation.
already his third Super Bowl. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So third Super Bowl, and I think is 5 years of being a starting quarterback, 6 years in the league, 5 years as a starter. So he's got a chance. But yeah, I'm with you. Mahomes is too special not to just choose him, and I really, really enjoy watching him. So should be a fun time. We'll talk about this a little bit more when you tune into our next episode of Green with Envy. As I mentioned, make sure you're following us on YouTube, our Twitter, Instagram. We will be live just like we did after this game, after the Memphis Grizzlies and Boston Celtic game on Sunday. We'll see who's on what team. We'll see if maybe OG Anunoby, maybe he's a Memphis Grizzly by then. I don't know. We'll see. That could be interesting. Could be one of his first games. So could have a lot to talk about. That should be a fun matchup regardless, even if neither team makes a move. That should be a really fun one. We'll see who's healthy for the Celtics come that time. But for now, that's going to do it for this episode of Green with Envy. As always, we appreciate you guys joining us and tuning in, locking in with your boys here. Greg, any final thoughts? And, well, no final thoughts. But what are we going to hear on the way out?
You know the drill. Black Sheep Optimus, Skywalking. Peace, everybody.
Deuces.